Welcome back. My name is Ivica Cartello. You are watching a React school for the total beginners. Redux Add Amount. Open Visual Studio Code, Terminal, New Terminal, CD. I call this address because here in this folder, how to, I create all my application from React application. I just created folder 412. Now open that folder. And here it is. We have opened empty folder 412. Open this Git repository, code, copy this address, copy, and type command git clone and paste this repository. Enter. Copy this part of address. It is a name of folder. Control C. And open. Paste. Now is open folder 409 Redux Add Amount. It is our application. npm I this I is instead installation. It is short for install. Now npm start npm start, and here is our application. What I want to explain in this video. Add a value. In counter we have a in a video, recent video before this one, I spoke and explained a counter with step by step by one. Now we step what we want. For example, 10 add amount or minus 14 add amount, etc. 1 add amount. How we used Redux in this application. Now I will open folder 409 Redux Add Amount. Here it is. 90% of script is as before, as in last our video. Let's go. Start, create app. Inside the app folder, create store. Here is a script for store. Import configure store for Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit, it is a package for a new kind of Redux, new version of Redux. Less coding for us. than before. Store is object. Object in Redux what take care about state. Store is object, state is properties of that object. Store.state. And store, there is a three important function. Configure store is important because create store. Configure store is function what creates store. And dispatch is a method of store by what store listen action on our HTML and take listen what happened and take action and transmit it, bring it to reducer. Dispatch method. And third is get state. Store dot get state. Here it is only for look at get state. It is kind how we can get state from store. And that store.getState use our hook named useSelector. And dispatch method of store used hook named useDispatch, useDispatcher. And use selector and use dispatcher is two hooks in HTML pages in component, what we use in component. Dispatch is for take event, take happening, take action, what describe what happened on the component, take action and bring that to reducer in that action bring to reducer in store, inside store. And second input for a reducer is state, is all state. Reducer, there is a two input and one output, because of that there is a name, a reducer. Reduce, two input, reduce to one output. One output is new state. Here it is. Export, we create object store by help of this function configure store, and in parameter of that function we have curly brackets. It is store. Store is object. Every object is in curly brackets. In curly brackets, and that object store, there is a reducer, a column in curly brackets. Reducer have counter column counter reducer. It means that we have only one reducer, and name of that reducer is counter reducer. And here reducer mean combine reducer, because in the next video we will have more reducer than one. Here we have only one reducer named counter reducer. Okay, and it is in curly brackets. Reducer is function, but store what can have more reducer is object, and combine reducer is also object, because can have a lot of members, a lot of reducers. Okay, now we have only one reducer, and it's all. Inside the parameter, we have an object. Store is object. Okay, now we must connect that store with the React application, and it will be here. Import React from React, import create root. Create root is function what we need because all happen in root, all virtual, all runtime of JavaScript application, of React application is inside the root. Look at here, root, object root, dot render, method render, and parameter is complete React application with the top component up. Inside the provider React element provider, there is a prop, short for properties. There is a prop equal store, what we create just before, and this is connection between this is a lock, this is a wrap of connection of wrap Redux and React, because of that provider coming from React Redux, and here it is script for our communication, it is API. All until now we have API connected to application, Redux application and React application. Okay, and we import provide, we import create root, import provider, import store, and import app, our topic component from React application. And we create object container, left side, and instantiate and add value this document dot get element by ID, and parameters is root. Document is our document object model. It is DOM. It is place in memory where lay our where lay HTML. But our HTML, React HTML, don't lay in that part of memory, but our React component inside a React application runtime, there is a runtime out of that document, never go in that DOM, but running in virtual part, virtual part of separate memory, and these two rows create connection, create API between DOM and virtual running JavaScript. First, object container, we declare object container, equal root, equal document dot get element by ID root. We have that root, it is here, public. Only one file with extension HTML, and here you see, you look at HTML element division div, what ID identification root. We create our virtual part, our React virtual part, with DOM, with document object model. Why we need that? We need that because JavaScript is guest to hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol, there is, as always be with protocol, every protocol must have two sides, and there is a client and server. Web browser is client, web server is server. And that technology, HTTP, HTML transfer protocol, that technology working also when JavaScript coming. And JavaScript always work in separate part of memory, and it is programs, JavaScript is scripting programs what are running in web browser. Now we know the technology can run in the server also. Because of that virtual part, and here it is Redux and React, a virtual part, they together running virtually in virtual part of memory, and separate part of memory, running virtually, and must be connected with technology HTML transfer protocol. Because of that, we have this creation our virtual part, our Redux React application connect with HTML document model, DOM, document object model. And when we have container, object container is virtual part of HTML. It is virtual part of DOM, virtual part like mirror, and the root object, declare a root object, create root. That is function what coming from React DOM client, create a root, and parameter of that function is container. And this two row is like creating bed, cradle for our React application. And React application, it is for a React application. And React application separate, here there is a connection by provider element. Provider is React element with properties store, equal store. That part is API between React application and Redux application. It means that at first we have in our root, it is bed for virtual running JavaScript application. There is root, our root, here it is, root. There is a method render and rendering, root rendering on every changes inside JavaScript application, inside React application, rendering, we have a application React rendering would be rendering, and we will have new data in our on the screen. And all today go to JavaScript application, popular frames based on JavaScript. Why? Because rendering here means that on the screen will change only the new data, only new changes, not all. And it is something impress. It is something with a user experience take on the high level and hard coming back. All expect that our web page would be like a desktop application page that would be in a moment, in one part of the second, nanosecond, that would be changes immediately after that changes happened. It is that now after store we have app application, our top component in React, import counter. It is web component what we'll see soon. It is from here feature counter and function up return counter. It is React element counter. Here it is. And now we'll go to counter. Open features, folder counter, and counter.js, import React. Here is very, very important. We don't need import React because we import React only once here in index.js. After that, we don't need counter. Import use state. Use state, all what begin with use in a name, use state, use selector, use dispatch, use is hooks. Hooks are function what help us to remove class component and use only function component. Use state, we will see what we do with use state from React. Import, you look at use selector, use dispatch, all that hooks is for component side, but use selector and use dispatch are special hooks what can connect Redux also, connect React and Redux. Use dispatch is hook what connect in one way from React to Redux, and use selector is connection one way from Redux to component. Let's go to see increment amount import and select count. Increment by amount and select count from counter slice. We will see what is it. Export function counter, it is component function component counter, named counter. We create inside curly brackets, we create object count equal user selector select count. It is our state of counter. It is now number 1, number 6, number 11. It is count. We call that count. It is a state. It is a state. And you look at that state coming from Redux. Select count is on this side, and this side is all about reducer, about store, about Redux. And select count, we will see what is it. Select count is object in Redux, but use selector can take that object select count from Redux, take it and add, instantiate as and to be value of our object count. Constant dispatch here is use dispatch, and it means that dispatch object have dispatch is function equal that object equal this function, and dispatch its function, and in that statement use dispatch, create a dispatch. It means that this dispatch can go to Redux, from component to Redux. It is all possible because this statement, because of that hook, use dispatch. Dispatch is now method of store, and we look at down how it works. We create a constant this array. This array is a product of use state, and we write here 2, we can write 4, for example. It is initial state. 4 would be initial state. Look at now. Must go to I must start again. Start again. And you look at 4 is initial state. 4. 4 is take care. 0 is state, it is count, but here a value in input box is 4. This is value what we now not add. I don't push add. And in this moment we have a 4 here in input element, and count is 0 initial value. But initial value of input box is 4. Use state is name say as that it is hook. Use state is for change state in local state, and the local state is state of input, value of input. Change that input on the immutable kind. Use state can do this. Because use state give us increment amount. It is state, for example, 4. Now it is 4. And set increment amount. Set increment amount make immutable change. Immutable kind of change. Value in input. We use local immutable changes because we don't need it in Redux. It is only value of input in between our typing until our click on button add amount. And add amount go to Redux, and count, state count, we put in Redux, but state of input element we take as local, and use state hook help us in that. He use state in this part, increment amount, memorize new state, and that new state of from input state, it is input state, set increment amount, make immutable changes of input value, and waiting increment amount, waiting that we push stay as value, and waiting that we push on button add amount. Here it is. This 4 is amount, concretely 4 is increment amount. Who set that? We type, but use state, manipulate that increment amount would be new state, immutable, an immutable kind. And it is a local situation. After we, here it is increment value, equal number increment amount. It is for, because every value from input is string by default. And because of that, we must make that statement. Object creates object increment value equal number. Number is a function, and parameter is value, some value. Here is increment amount. It would be, for example, 4 or what we type. But number convert that string to number. It must be a number because we have adding, we have math adding operand. Okay, these two sign, these two characters means or. It is logical or. Okay. Create this or 0. Of course, if don't have increment value, will be 0. And here it is only for some control to see that value. And I don't need this. Return. Return in component. It is function component counter. Return is always, and parameter of return is always a visible part of our component. It was scripting, only JavaScript, but here after return we have JSX language, JavaScript extension, or JavaScript XML, and here in return we have HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and together it is JSX language. Very friendly, because HTML we must learn separate, and a lot of job is done by knowledge of HTML. And with H1, this is count. This is our count. Here it is. Here it is. And count. And in input, value of input is increment amount. Curly brackets means that it is concretely value. It is create constant increment value. Here it increment amount. It is here concretely. Declare, here it is declare, and that declared object is here. It is value. On change is JavaScript event. JavaScript event, here in input, it is properties of input. One properties of input. On change, we will have event and parameter event. It is in curly brackets. It is curly brackets coming because of that function. That function is concretely here. It is set increment amount. It is set state, named here set increment amount. It is function what will take value of that event target. Event is object, target is properties of object event, and that properties of object events, there is properties value. It is properties value. On change will happen this will be changed value input. On change we will have when we type in input, we are in focus of input, and when we write for that moment, set amount, set increment amount, go ahead and create new value, and on click create that new value what we typed, but create in on immutable kind, and we can look that new number, and waiting that we click on button add amount. When we click on button add amount, activate dispatch method of store. Parameter of that method, that function, is increment by amount. Increment by amount. Increment amount. Increment by amount. Increment by amount is action, and the parameter of that action is increment value. Increment value. Action is always object, and here it is object in JavaScript and in function programming. All if object equal function, etc. But increment by amount is action, but it is creator, action creator. It is function, because increment by amount is not action. Action is name of action is combination of increment by amount and counter, and we will see that on counter slice. And that function, it is creator of action. Increment value is parameter, and that increment value coming from here. Increment value, here it is. That means that increment value is action creator. Let's go to last our side here, counter slice, and here it is. This counter slice is all about reducer. And reducer, there is a two input, action and the state, but one output, new state. And here it is, we need create slice. It is from Redux toolkit, one package. We must constant create initial state, because at first we must have initial state that we have some state for Redux. Redux, there is a two input. One input is state and second input is action. And the first time when there is no action from us, there is no event, there is nothing happen, that first time must be initial state. And there is no action, only initial state in that first time. And that's it. And now we declare object counter slice. It is function create slice, create that what create? Let's go. Create action creator, foundation for action creator. Create slice coming out from Redux toolkit. Create slice function create action creator. Action creator is function what create action, and for that action we need name counter, and we need reducer, here is this name, and action, there is a type and payload. Type and payload. Type of one action would be counter slash increment by amount. It will be type of concretely this action. And we have here name, counter, initial state, comma, and reducers in curly brackets. We have only one reducers. It means that our reducer will take initial state, and action will be counter slash increment by amount. You look at state, comma, action. It is increment by amount column arrow function. Parameter is state and action. What state? Initial state at first. Action. And in curly brackets, in body of that arrow function, we have state dot value plus, it means add action dot payload. What is payload? Payload is what we type here. Now is 4, now is 5. That is payload. 5 is payload. F12. No, I copy it in. I must again start a new terminal. Start yes, and this is I copy it in Chrome. I copy it in Chrome, and I F12. I open Redux. If you have not in Chrome, you ask Google how to add Redux toolkit develops tool to Chrome, and here it is 3 counter. It is counter here is means state char row. Here it is counter value 4, and look at 0 value 0 to 4. But look at here. Action is counter increment by amount. Again, now we can look history. We can look this action. It is excellent for debug. And again, now 10. Add amount. Look at now here. Add amount value from 4 to 8. 3 row, and counter increment by amount. Counter increment, we have only one action, and action, there is a type of action. Type of action is counter increment by amount, counter / increment by amount. And payload, what is payload? Payload is value what we type in input box. It is payload. Payload name, payload coming from transport in big transport by car, and that content of that car transport and payload, and here is dispatch is like a big car take payload. And when we go back here now, you look at that all this in slice, what create slice function create, it is foundation for action creator. Action creator is function. Action creator must create action object. Action is object, because action object, there is a type and there is a payload. And when we called it increment by amount, it is practically name of action creator. Action creator. It is name of function action creator, and that function action creator, there is a element state comma action, and there is in curly brackets payload. And increment by amount action creator, there is all component what need for create action. There is a counter, name of our reducer, and there is it is reducer, counter reducer. There is a counter reducer, very important, because action go in reducer. Can be more reducer, and every reducer there is a name. Because of that action, there is a type of action, and must have that type of action must have name of reducer inside. Counter / increment by amount. In next examples, in next video, you will see more reducers, and now will be clear that type of action must have name of reducer. Counter here, counter. Look at, and here is export reducer. There is no together name counter reducer, but create slice produce action creator and produce all but create slice produce and here in this counter slice we produce a complete reducer, and counter slice will take this for name of reducer. And let's go to state store. Look at reducer counter reducer. We don't see that name anywhere. It is construction of slice. Counter slice construct this from name counter and export reducer. Look at again. From name counter and reducer. Construct name of reducer. Increment by amount. Because of that we have here in counter we have dispatch. What dispatch? Action creator increment by amount, and that action creator create type no here, but here in Chrome create a type of action and payload. Create object action. Object action, there is a two-member type and payload. Counter increment amount. And here again. And that is increment by amount. It is this increment by amount. We have here a state and action. In before, in counter, when we by one have steps by one, we don't have action because it is known that we go one by one. Here was plus equal 1, but action payload, we don't know what we will type in input box. Export declare increment by amount. Look at here it is. Constant increment by amount equal counter slice actions. It is all actions what is here, but it is now only one action, increment by amount. But here constant select count is a constant select 1 is equal arrow function state in parameter, and here is a state dot counter dot value. State object state, there is a properties counter, and properties counter there is a properties value, and select count is value of our state count of our count. And here is a counter slice reducer default export. It is sliced. It must be a lot of example that we take in our memory, and it must be clear what happened here. And when we understand what happened here, we can memorize it. and we can create it in our example, in our work. What I want to see, counter slice, counter. Store. I think that I said all, but we have next example, more example, very simple example, but they as simple as possible, but they learn us all about Redux. Thank you for watching this video.